Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. I'm sitting over here at the end of a dock looking at some stuff, drinking my coffee. It's a great morning wherever I am right now. And of course, there's a weed whacker going. Normal. Uh, kind of the nature sounds of the 21st century. I want to talk about wire, boat wiring. This is another one of those Reddit things. It came into this huge discussion. This guy's trying to do a bilge pump. He's got two bilge pumps, a Rule 3000, a Rule 4000. The one has slightly higher capacity than the other. Obviously, it's the 4000 being bigger than the 3000. Neither of them take a huge amount of stuff. And if you go and you do the book and you look at the calculations, that's 14 gauge wire is going to work for both of them. It's a small boat, small pumps. But it's very confusing, and you've got people telling this guy on Reddit that he has to use 8 gauge because of thermal load and the heat buildup of insulated wire, and you've got people telling him 10 gauge, and you've got people telling him 18 gauge, and it's just, most of it's like 10, 8, 6. You have to do something extra beefy, and you don't. And it's all very complicated, and these people keep adding different things to it and trying to double the length of the run because they're like, well, you didn't calculate this right. Look, even on a 40-foot boat, your bilge pump, regular size bilge pump, most people are running regular size bilge pumps, you're going to be okay with 14. Maybe you'll need 12 gauge wire. 12 gauge is the key here. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But you don't need, 8 gauge for much. If you've got a really big bilge pump directly connected to a really big battery, and you're running a 20-foot run because the battery's way in the back and this emergency bilge pump is way in the front where you can't get to it, which would make sense, then yeah, maybe you need to spend some money on 8 gauge. That's the other one. We're going to talk about 16, 12, and 8. Maybe 8 as we go through this conversation. You've got 3 basic kinds of things that are going on in a boat. You've got really light, low draw stuff. LED lighting, LED panel lighting that's coming off of a circuit that's right there on your dashboard, your helm station, whatever it might be. And that stuff, honestly, some of that stuff can run off 20 gauge wire. Some of that stuff can run off 18 gauge wire. It's a very low draw, okay? Less than 2 amps. It's a short run. Nothing's going to overheat. You're not going to melt any wires. Nothing bad is going to happen. And it's LED lighting. It's not like it has to have plus minus 3 volts of input or the computer won't work, right? Most of the computerized stuff has its own internal power supply to regulate the power supplied. So don't worry about that. For that stuff, I would suggest having a spool, not a big spool, but a short spool, some amount of 16 gauge wire on your boat. This is the stuff that can use 16, 18, 20, okay? You're not using speaker wire, but this is what you think of as speaker wire, okay? You're going to use proper single conductor, 2 conductor, 3 conductor, whatever, sheathed marine wire. I would go with non-sheathed, just red and black, individual red and black or white and black or whatever your color scheme is, wire for this. This stuff is also cheap enough that if you want to have the green and the yellow and the purple and all the different colors, that's fine too. But just go with 16 gauge. It will do everything that is not a power system. Okay, it'll do your stereo, not your radio. Okay, not your transceiver, but your stereo, like your car stereo type stuff. It'll do power for lights in the cockpit, in the dashboard. It'll do all that stuff. You don't need a lot of it, but it's cheap, so keep some on hand. And it's for those kind of things. An accessory light when you're tapping off of a main line, something like that. 12 gauge is the next one to pick up. Everything in your boat is going to run off of 12 gauge unless it's directly connected to a battery and starts a motor or runs a bilge pump. Just everything is 12 gauge. And most of your bilge pumps are going to run 12 gauge too, so don't worry about that. Rather than trying to figure out the 16, the 14, the 12, just go with 12. Okay, I know I said 16 just a minute ago, but that's for small stuff. If you've got something that you think really requires 16 gauge wire as a minimum to be safe, then just do 12. Just buy this. If you buy it in bulk, if you buy a lot of it at once, the discount on the price is enough that you just buy the 12 and you don't have to think about it. People spent hours and hours and hours trying to figure out this guy's bilge pump. And it's really simple. It's a 20-foot fishing boat, and it's a basic bilge pump. Just have a spool of 12 gauge wire and don't even think about it, okay? If you're talking about 30, 40 amp circuit breakers and direct connection to the battery to start your motor, or some other stuff, then you might want to think about 8 gauge. Usually those things are going to actually tell you what they want. Like if you're connecting a battery to a battery, it's going to tell you that it wants 0 gauge or double 0 gauge or 2 gauge. You know, it depends on what's going on. If you're running a trolling motor, the trolling motor is going to tell you what it wants. It's going to tell you it needs 6 gauge wire for like a 48-pound thrust Newport. It's going to tell you that. They will tell you what they want, and that's fine. Most of the time, almost everything in your boat, you're safe to just use 12 gauge. The only reason I'm suggesting 16 gauge as something to have is for those little fiddly panels and those little fiddly things where you're dealing with a backlight for your Garmin enclosure or something. Okay. Hooking up the stereo, whatever. 12 gauge is the meat, the backbone of your boat. Most lights are LED now, and you could actually get away with just doing a big loop of 18 gauge or 16 gauge wire on your boat and having all of your lights run off of that. And that's fine, but I'm going to say just do 12 gauge. The reason you do 12 gauge is because everything is safe on 12 gauge, up to and including everything except a monster bilge pump. Most of the stuff on your boat is going to be very happy with 12 gauge. Just get 12 gauge, 12 gauge, 12 gauge. The answer to almost everything is 12 gauge. And so if you do a big loop, if you do your big run, it's going to look like a line, but there's a conductor, like your red power wire and your black ground wire, negative wire. Okay, if you think of it that way, that as a loop that goes to your battery or your panel, your switch panel, then you've got lights connected to that, and they have their own individual switches. Nowadays, most of these lights are going to be LEDs, and they draw very little power. So you could actually do this with 16 gauge wire. But if you want to never have to worry about whether or not it's going to take too much to add a red light or a small incandescent bulb because you want that little bit of heat in that little corner or whatever, if you don't want to worry about it, tapping into that main cabin light circuit, just use 12 gauge. If you just use 12 gauge, you're pretty much unlimited in what you're going to be able to attach to it in modern terms. Just use 12 gauge. You know, if you're running one of the new CCOP compressor fridges, 12 gauge. Just run 12 gauge. It's going to be fine. Most stuff will be very happy with 12 gauge, and it's overbuilt. It's overdone. It's more than you actually need 90% of the time. But if you just get a big spool of it, you have it, and you never have to worry about it. You don't have to try to worry about calculations about whether 18, 16, or 14 gauge is going to work. Just use 12 gauge. Just use 12 gauge pretty much for everything. Buy it in bulk, get the discount, and don't worry about it. You could kind of make an argument for doing this with 14 gauge instead of 12 gauge. That's up to you. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. At that point, you need to make sure that everything that connects to the battery is 10 gauge, say. Okay, so your bilge pumps are all going to run off 10 gauge because that's your default. 14 will run the average small boat bilge pump just fine. But you know, if you have to go on the internet and ask permission of other people or opinions of other people because you're confused and you're anxious and you have a little bit of anxiety or neuroticism about this, just buy something heavy and use it. I like to keep a couple hundred feet of 12 gauge because everything will run off of 12 gauge. Then I keep some 8 gauge because 8 will run pretty much anything that 12 won't. And if I need a bit bigger than 8 gauge, if I need 6 or 4 or 2 or double aught, it's a special thing, and I need to make a cable special purpose, and I'm going to buy exactly the wire I need. I'm not going to buy a spool and just carry it around. So that's your fast, simple, easy answer. For little lights that you're adding to a circuit, or little small low-powered things like an LED for a night light or something, just buy 16 gauge and just have a spool. It's great to have that in multiple colors so that you can do all the little stuff on your little switch panel, but it doesn't really matter. Label everything, label it 3 times, and put a diagram inside whatever the compartment is. Everything else, just use 12 gauge. Just use 12 gauge. If you want to keep something heavier on hand because sometimes you need a little bit of beef, like an emergency bilge pump or something, get some 8 gauge. That's it. End of story. End of discussion. I don't know how to repeat this over and over and over again, but it really does help people to just hear it over and over and over again. Just buy 12 gauge. Almost everything in a boat will be very happy with 12 gauge. It'll be overbuilt, but you can add on to the circuit without having to worry about pulling a brand new wire. That's it. And that background sound is a boat lift. It looks like there's one over there. Nifty. I'm going to go look at the boatyard and watch people do boat stuff. Have a good one.